A few years ago, my family and I went to a mountain resort in the Appalachians. It was me, 10 years old at the time, my mom, my dad, and my older brother Kevin, who didn't really want to be there with us, but he wasn't allowed to stay home by himself just yet. Mom chose an accommodation we hadn't been to before, but it seemed like a really good deal during Christmas time, when all the prices are usually double. As soon as we got to that place, I had an eerie feeling about it. The whole place looked a bit shabby, and there was no one to greet us on arrival. We found the keys under the welcome mat, to which Dad shrugged and said, "Must be like some sort of AirBnB then?" My brother even commented he was glad this wasn't a fancy hotel, as it felt much more down to earth. Fair enough, I thought, and we proceeded to settle in for the week. Later that night, we drove to the tiny town center, where we had pizza and hot cocoa, as it was very cold and snowy outside. From inside the pizza place, I could see a bunch of strange men next to our car. I told my mom about this and pointed towards them. As we looked, they looked back. They saw me pointing and grinned at me in an awful way. I let out a shriek and my dad calmed me down. He said, "It's just a couple of homeless people. They don't mean any harm." But what were they doing with our car? Dad said it was probably just a coincidence, as they were looking for food or money around where we were. I was okay with that, I thought, even though deep inside I was still worried. The next day was Christmas Eve, and the plan was to use the little shed in the back of the main cabin to fill it with Christmas decorations, and then use them to decorate our cabin in the evening. So we went to a local supermarket and bought everything we hadn't brought from home. Tinsel, a tiny tree, candy. We already had fairy lights and mugs for hot drinks. As Dad and I were walking down the aisle, I felt my heart almost pound out of my chest when I saw the same homeless men as the day before at the pizza place. It was just one of them this time, and our eyes locked. He gave me another horrible smile, revealing his rotten teeth. So I yelled at Dad to leave the place. My dad was reassuring once more, saying that I shouldn't worry about him, and even adding it's not Christmas-like to be mean to homeless people. I said I really wasn't, but he gave me a nasty smile, and he looked pretty mean to me. We got home eventually and put all the new decorations in the small shed in the backyard. In the evening, everyone started the preparations for decorating the cabin. Well, everyone except Kevin, who was playing video games. My parents were fixing the tree and its little wooden support when my mom told me to go to the shed and bring in all the decorations to the cabin. I put on my boots and hurried out to the shed. I opened the doors, but it was dark inside. Before I could look for a light, someone grabbed me and closed the door. He covered my mouth so I couldn't shout, and then locked the door to the shed and turned the light on. It was the homeless man from earlier, dressed in a dirty Santa costume. I was so afraid, I couldn't feel my hands or feet anymore, and I was certain I was going to vomit very soon. "How did you get in here?" "I followed your silly car, didn't I?" And his breath stank of God knows what. I wished my parents were there so I could tell them one big "I told you so." I was very scared and confused. "What do you want?" "I just want to laugh at you for believing in the spirit of Christmas. You and all your family." I realized this man was just mean, and that got on my nerves. "Well, Santa Claus is coming for me tonight." He burst into a loud, hoarse laughter. "Santa Claus? If Santa was a thing, do you think I would be in this situation dressed like this?" I really didn't know what to reply to this. Everything was extremely strange and scary. Then I thought, wait a minute. He didn't have a knife, at least not in sight, and he wasn't covering my mouth anymore. So I shouted from the top of my lungs and banged on the shed door. He told me to stop, but before long, both of my parents were at the shed and Dad was holding a big kitchen knife. They were shocked to see me in there with that man they kept telling me not to worry about. Dad held his knife, pointed at this man, while we called 911 and waited for the police to arrive. The local police said that they were very sorry that this happened, and that this group of homeless people has been in and out of custody mostly around Christmas when they get extra upset, seeing thousands of tourists come in and have a good time. That's when I started to feel pity more than anything. It's really sad that some people didn't have a roof over their heads on Christmas. I picked a chocolate box from the shed and gave it to the man, not saying anything. My parents were very surprised to see me do this, after the same guy had locked me in the shed with him. The man thanked me and left in the police car. The event was shattering on many levels, and now there is no Christmas without me thinking of all the sad homeless people out there who would be kinder if they had a home and a warm meal on Christmas Day. I spent the last Christmas with my daughter Ava. My husband and I had separated, and Ava was just 3 years old, so she needed all my care and attention. But I wanted to give her a really good Christmas, with all the toys and decorations we could have in the house. So I decided to hit a huge supermarket a few days before the big day, and to have Ava choose her favorite decorations. Well, that was easier said than done. When we got to the supermarket, there were so many options. We could easily have spent a whole day picking and choosing. Plus, Ava was very young, so she would often get distracted by the many choices and keep changing her mind. We must have been there for over an hour looking at the tinsel, fairy lights, and toy reindeers. I was getting pretty tired, and to be honest, I just wanted to pick a few things and get it over with. I took Ava to a big area between the aisles designated to the Christmas shop. There was a big, colorful plastic shed in the middle with a tall Christmas tree full of baubles, plastic reindeer all around. I figured the shed was for sale too, and I was just looking at it calculating whether it would look nice in our living room. I was certain that Ava would love crawling in and out of it back home. Ava was indeed pretty excited about the shed, as she was running around it and giggling. I looked around myself to ask someone about its price, as I couldn't see it anywhere. And just then, something truly weird happened. A skinny Santa Claus appeared, wearing a loose costume and a scraggly beard mask. He asked me if I would like to see the shed from inside. My first thought was this man was a store employee, which made sense to me as usually the employees were pretty young and slim. I didn't think twice and joined him inside the shed, which wasn't much bigger than a closet. It really was a lovely toy shed, and that's what I told the Santa. I like it. What's the price, please? By now, I figured something was off. The now truly creepy Santa was smiling at me and saying nothing. He locked the door to the shed with a weird little key and then hid the key inside his costume. "What the hell?" I shouted at him. "My daughter was out there. Let me out!" But this horrible Santa was just having a laugh. He mocked me for coming into the shed with him and said I said yes way too easily. "What else would you say yes to?" He opened with a horrifying grin on his face. This was becoming too much. I pushed him and tried to open the door by force. It was a plastic shed, after all, but the door wouldn't budge. The skinny Santa was trying to hold me back from the door, but I was growing angrier by the second. I shouted as loud as I could so that someone from the store would come to my help. I shouted that my daughter was alone and that I was with a creep inside that shed. Within a few minutes, security came and opened the shed's door with another tiny key. I got out first and told the security men to do something with that creepy Santa, but he immediately got out of the shed and ran past the guards like an eel, heading for the shop's exit. The security guards ran after him, and I was left wondering how that Santa was able to get a key for that shed without anyone asking any questions. It was then that my heart sank. I couldn't see Ava. I shouted for her and began running down all the aisles in desperation. I asked a few people around me if they had seen a 3-year-old girl anywhere, but everyone was just nodding their heads. I was beyond worried now. Ava was roaming free in the same store as the creepy Santa who had locked me in. Then I got to the registers, and I sighed with relief. Ava was with an elderly lady at one of the registers. Apparently, Ava had gone there herself asking about me. I hugged Ava and talked to the lady about what happened. She called security, and the same 2 men arrived there to talk to me. Apparently, the creepy Santa had gotten away. They asked me for a description so they can recognize him if he comes back. Obviously, he was very well disguised, wearing a Santa hat and beard mask, so I couldn't be much of help. I was pretty angry, though. How could they let him get away? And how come he had a key to the shed? I asked all these questions out loud, and the cashier lady had a eureka moment. She said this might have been a former employee the store had just let go for odd behavior. She didn't know what exactly he'd done to get himself fired, but she remembered he was pretty angry about it. This made sense. He probably stole the key to the shed to play horrible pranks on the store's customers as revenge. Needless to say, I didn't buy that shed for Ava. However, we did put up a tiny tent in the living room, and we decorated it with cushions and fairy lights. It was a good Christmas, and I was just glad to be there with my daughter. I was in my last year of grade school when the school organized a big Christmas event. There would be a Santa Claus, a few hours of gift opening, and a Christmas party with music till late night to celebrate the coming school holiday. I was pretty excited about it, even though I knew Santa would just be a guy in the costume, and that the presents would just be random sweets for all students. This was my last year in that school, and I wanted to party, as I knew high school was coming soon, and that meant even more partying. On the day of the event, I got to school just a bit before the event and met up with my best friends, Jordan and Katie. There were a few kids already in the assembly hall, but most of them were in their classrooms prepping for the event with their teachers. Since we were the oldest kids in the school, we felt too cool for that, so we just waited in the big hall. A few moments later, Santa appeared. There was this really nasty aura around him. He looked tired, completely joyless, and he was scratching his leg as he made his way to the stage. I looked at my friends and grimaced with them about this guy. My friends thought he was weird too, and we kept an eye on him for the next few minutes. He threw his bag on the ground, looked around the hall for a minute, and then asked one of the teachers for directions to the bathroom. I wasn't going to analyze that, as anyone has the right to use the restroom before a 2-hour-long event where you have to hold kids on your lap. However, there was something strange about this man, and I couldn't shake off the feeling. Anyway, all the students gathered, and the little ones were especially excited about meeting Santa and getting their present. Santa was a little more excited too. He would laugh with the kids and call out silly things like whoopsie daisy when lifting the kids onto his lap, but I kept looking at his face and thinking that there was something off about him. He looked really tired, with deep bags under his eyes and wrinkles that were obvious, even with the beard mask and the glasses. Jordan, Katie, and I didn't go to sit on Santa's lap. We were 13 and knew better. We just wanted to party. When all the presents were gone and the little kids were picked up by their parents, the school staff set a few extra tables in the hall and filled them with snacks, drinks, and music equipment. I was really expecting Santa to leave by now, but he was still in the hall, jolly as ever. He was chatting with the teachers and making some weird remarks that just made them look at each other and scoff. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but it was clear, judging from the teachers' faces, that he wasn't good at casual conversation. Everyone was too polite to kick Santa out, so he stayed and partied with the children, entertaining us as he danced horribly to the Christmas tunes, late in the evening. I was pretty bored from the party when Katie came to get me and whispered something in my ear. They saw Santa leave the main building and go behind the school. So I left with Jordan, Katie, and a few others to follow Santa behind the school. There was a big shed at the back, and that's where all the Christmas decorations were being kept until that day. Katie was certain Santa was there, as she's seen him walk in that directions. What could he be doing? He didn't work at the school. So we all went to the shed and opened its door, and I felt a knot in my stomach as I realized why Santa was so jolly. He was smoking crack. When he saw us all staring at him, his eyes went big, red, and bulgy. He started whisper shouting at us, knowing that if he shouted, the teachers would find him. "What are you doing here? Why aren't you at your stupid party?" Jordan replied sarcastically. "Why aren't you?" He was right. Santa got really angry, but knowing he couldn't shout, he just slammed his foot on the floor, making a few Christmas toys fall with a resonating noise. Jordan saw these objects and exclaimed, "Wow, cool," as he went to the shed to explore the toys. I went after him as I didn't want Jordan all alone with Santa in the shed, and then the others came in as well. Santa got out and laughed at us as he locked the shed door and left. "Let us out!" Katie shouted, but Santa was long gone. Of course, he needed to ensure we wouldn't tell the teachers about him while he was on the premise. It was cold, dark, and we were panicking. There was an awful smell in the shed from what Santa was smoking earlier, and we were locked from outside with no idea how to unlock that door. As ashamed as I was for getting in that situation, I called another classmate who was still at the party and asked him to tell the teachers to come get us. When the head teacher got to the shed, we had to explain that it wasn't us who smoked whatever they could smell, but Santa, if they could believe it. Jordan told the head teacher he did a pretty lousy job at hiring the Santa this year. Once again, he was right. I was never a big fan of Santa Claus, and I knew he wasn't real, but this one really ruined Christmas for me. Ugh! These were some pretty horrible Santas. I sure hope you have better memories of Santa Claus. Before you go, make sure to hit the like button and check out the other horror stories, if you can handle more. If you do, why not subscribe to the channel and click that bell button so you're always up to date with the blood-chilling stories. All right, stay safe out there. Sleep tight.